Good evening. I never understood the true meaning of the phrase, freedom is not free, until I welcomed home my brother from his deployment to Iraq. He was supposed to come home in October of 2007, but voluntarily extended his stay an additional 3 months for a tax-free bonus. He was scheduled to come home January 2nd, 2008. He was ready to come home, excited to come home. He had been there for over a year. He called and wanted us to meet him at the airport, but told us he wouldn't have much time to talk because he'd have to get on a bus that would take him back to Fort McCoy, where they would debrief the mission. There were 18 of us that got on the bus that cold December morning. As we approached the secured gates of Fort Snelling National Air Force Base, they magically opened. Driving through the base, military personnel looked up at us with somber faces, for they knew. The bus stopped at the hangar where we would welcome John home. The doors again were held open for us as we made our way through all the hallways that eventually led into this big opening. It was like an auditorium. I noticed a couple of people working up on top of a plane. As we entered, they silently left. There were a handful of military dignitaries standing there, and way across the room I could see 6 soldiers dressed in uniform, waiting to serve their brother, who had been awarded the Bronze Star and the Purple Heart. There was a man standing at the hangar door with a radio. We could hear static, muffled voices. Then he began to open those doors. Lined up outside those doors was a plane. The 6 soldiers stood at attention, in pairs, in 2 rows, and together in step, they began to walk to that plane. Soon they guided the wooden box, draped with the American flag off that plane, and together in step with honor and dignity, they carried their brother into the hangar. As they passed by, my voice broke the sobs around me. I called out, "Yay, John!" It was his welcome home. They then guided the box into the back of the black, shiny vehicle that would transport him to his next 3 destinations, with the final being Fort Snelling National Cemetery. As they backed up, I would witness for the first time of many times what they called the 3-second salute, a gesture of reverence. We were then able to approach the back of the vehicle. I noticed the silver shiny dog tag hanging from a handle. I turned it around, I read it, I held onto it. John was home. Over the next couple of days, hundreds of people would come to pay their respects and give condolences. Patriot Guards stood outside, holding flags in sub-zero temperatures, honoring their fallen soldiers and keeping us safe. Friends, relatives, supporters that never met John, his military brothers and sisters, all were there. Media, politicians. The governor of Minnesota ordered that the flag to be flown at half-mast the day that John was buried. One of the saddest events I've ever experienced was when the sergeant major performed the final roll call. He does this by calling out a soldier's name, and they respond by saying, "Here, Sergeant Major, sir." He did this with 2 of the soldiers that were there. Then he called, "Sergeant Tobiason." And it was silent. And again, "Sergeant John Tobiason." And behind me, I could hear people gasping and crying. And someone even asked the question, why are they doing this? And for the last time, "Sergeant John Joseph Tobiason." Out of the thousands of white stones in that cemetery, John would be laid to rest, 7 plots to the east and 1 plot to the north of our father. He entered the military shortly out of high school in 1984 on November 28th. That same day, he gave the ultimate sacrifice by taking a bullet shot out of a Russian AK-47 held by an Iraqi. John believed in what he was doing. This was his passion, his career. He understood why he was there. He had written a letter to the editor of his hometown paper called the Hayfield Herald. And in this letter, he wrote a little bit about his mission. He also wrote in there that we need to honor everyone who has worn that military uniform before him. They are the true American heroes of the world. They are the reason why we have the freedoms that we have in our great nation. He also wrote in that letter that if he were to die for something so precious as honor is to all of us, and freedom, he would be honored. I've shared this with you today so you can help carry out John's message. The next time you hear our national anthem, or this summer when you're at the parade, you see the National Guard coming up, stand up. Take your hats off, put your hand over your heart, and remember. And if you know someone who's been in the military and you've never told them thank you, go back now and thank them. And if you see someone out and about during your daily activities dressed in uniform, walk up to them, tell them thank you. For they all understand freedom isn't free. They do it for you, and they do it for me, so we can maintain the freedoms that we have. John, I stand before you today carrying out your message. You are a true American hero, and I'm so proud to have been your sister. Yet I'm humbled that you, my little brother, would be the one to teach me the true meaning of the phrase, freedom is not free. Madam Postman.